Hi, welcome back to Module 2 in Transforming Your Life. I hope you enjoyed doing the questions. And what I want to share with you is this is your life path. And although we can get lots of help and assistance from other dimensions, from other people, from people like myself, really, ultimately, you have to make the changes in your life. So I just wanted to acknowledge on the bottom of page 1 is make a date and start doing some of the things that you have addressed in the earlier questions. I've also got changing negative into positive. Normally, what we find in someone else that we don't like is something that we've been carrying around ourselves, and that's why we judge them. It's easier to judge someone else than ourselves. So looking at that is really important. And then when you feel loving and accepting of yourself and you forgive yourself for that part of you, you can call it a subpersonality, something that got you through, then you don't have so much judgment about anyone else. And then you don't have to take on their energy. I also have thinking of a pattern that you keep experiencing, because often you will find that the same people show up. I know for myself, my mom was very controlling. And so I worked on not being controlling, but it was still controlled, but it was a bit nice. I thought I was being nice. It was people pleasing too, but trying to control situations. But what I found is that because I hadn't done the work with my mother, all the women that were in my life, when I started to really look at myself and to grow, they were all controlling, they were all manipulative, and they weren't that kind. And as I shifted and changed myself, those people fell away and new, beautiful friendships were developed, and mentors that were loving and kind came into my life. So you always get what you need to get the lesson. And I've been working with someone who's a people pleaser. And what happens is the universe goes, oh, you need to take care of this. And it kind of gently taps you, and then it gets a little bit harder. And then it's full on in your face. And so I knew that she had this issue with people pleasing. And she had somebody who asked her if she could come and stay for a couple of days. And so I said to her, how long is she staying? She goes, oh, she just wants to stay 2 or 3 days. And I said, have you thought about telling her, like, you can stay 3 days? But she was still in people pleasing. She didn't say anything. So the girl comes to her house. She ends up staying a month. She doesn't really give her any money. She takes over the house, and that was where it was in this girl's face, like, oh my God, because I didn't speak up. But she had to have that experience herself to really get it. So we often bring things to us because we need to get it. And if we don't get it here, we get it much harder, because everything is to support us growing and developing spiritually and consciously. And until we're walking on water, things are always coming up, and we're having to do forgiveness. And I think what I realized years ago, I was in this metaphysical church, and the minister said, when you decide what you do want, everything unlike it will come up first. And I remember being so annoyed, like, that doesn't make any sense. And I was shown by my guidance, my guides, my angels, my hand in a bowl of water. And my hand going around in this bowl of water for, at that time, I was in my 30s. And the water had its own rhythm. And I saw changing the direction of my hand in this bowl of water and all the resistance hitting my hand. This was shown to me in my mind. And what I realized is that once you change a pattern or a situation and a new way of living, everything unlike what you want is going to come up. Sometimes it knocks you over, but it's still, the water calms, and then you start moving in the new direction. And so that's where the self-love comes in, because you can't beat yourself up for if that happens. Often when we make changes, situations will come up to test us and to make sure that we've got it and we're not going to be a people pleaser anymore. And this girl I worked with, she has really, really strong boundaries now because it was so in her face. I had another girl I worked with who knew something was going on with her husband. She felt that she should leave, but she chose not to. She was just getting these little taps like, you need to leave, you need to leave. And she didn't. And they had a house. He was really successful in business and it was comfortable. She didn't have to work. And so then she got a harder slap. And then he got in trouble for work, for something he did at work. And he ended up losing his job, losing the house, and she lost her marriage. But not just losing her marriage, she lost all the security that she'd been clinging to because she wasn't listening to her intuition and her guidance. So it's important when the universe goes, hey, you need to look at this, that you just take the chance and just follow your intuition. And you will see the patterns that you have created. So it's on one page, it's write down an area of your life you're having a problem in and decide what part of you, what sub-personality created this. So oftentimes we put things into place as children or as teenagers. We created patterns that held us tight. I know for myself, I was, what would you call it? Rebellious. And I was stubborn. My dad was really stubborn too. And that saved me as a teenager, but I sometimes cut my nose off to spite my face. I think that's an English saying, I don't know. But I would just stubbornly decide what I was going to do, and I wouldn't change. That inflexibility didn't serve me in later years. So it was created from this sub-personality as a teenager, and I had to thank it and let it go because it wasn't serving me anymore. And now what I'd like to do is go over the forgiveness test. We really need to be at a 10 with everybody, and that includes ourselves. So that is something that you should have completed. And so when you work on forgiveness, you don't actually have to see the person. You can do it energetically. You can write them a letter. You can visualize them in front of you. I've done it both ways with clients in the past. And personally, I prefer speaking than writing. So I will see the person in front of me and ask for their forgiveness, and I forgive them and have a conversation with them. You can do it with a group of people. You can do it with one person at a time. But until you have forgiven everyone in your life, including yourself, you're holding the energy. You're holding that person's energy, and it impedes you moving forward. So you can do it. You can write them a letter, but you don't have to send it. You can visualize burning the letter. And then if you still choose to write a letter, make it more loving and compassionate, but get all of the emotion out in the first letters that you write. And then you can do the burning technique that I offered in module 1. I have a really funny story, actually, because I was in Bali doing a healing class, and I was working with this English guy, and our teachers put us together, and he worked on me, and I was working on a situation, my dad, and forgiving my dad, and all the emotion around my father, who'd been, I think he died like 10 years prior to that class. And I cried so much, I peed my pants. I actually peed my pants twice. And I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to tell the guy that I peed my pants. So we all had to go to dinner later, and everybody shared. And so I said, yeah, I let go so much. I cried so much, I peed my pants twice. And the next day he had to work with the teachers, and we had the forgiveness test. And I'm trying to think what happened. So at breakfast, we're all having breakfast, and he says to me, so Jane, so I've worked with the best of the best. What are you going to do for me today? And I was like, oh my God. Like, I was so intimidated by that question, and knowing that my teacher had worked with him on all this stuff the day before. And so I went through the forgiveness test with him. And at that time, my teacher didn't have God on the paper. And I said, where are you at with your mother? A 10, your father, 10, your kids, 10. Everything was a 10. And I sat there for a minute. And then something told me, ask him about God. And when I asked him about God, he burst into tears. And he was at 0 because he'd been in the British Army, he'd been in Northern Ireland, he'd been in Afghanistan, and he had seen such horrible sights and experienced so much tragedy and war. And then he realized that he was angry with God. And we did this whole healing thing around his relationship with God. And so that's when I put it on my handout, because sometimes we don't even realize that we're angry with God. And it was a good experience. And I remember, like, he sobbed all through this session with me. And then he told me what he'd experienced, and how many of his friends, and how many of the soldiers he'd witnessed dying and been maimed for life. And it was understandable. And so he was then able to heal that. And it was a really powerful experience for him. And then when we went to dinner that night, it was like, yes, I did it. Because I was so intimidated when we started that morning, like, oh my God, how can I help this guy when he's worked with the teacher teaching us this? So never be intimidated, and just look at where you need to do forgiveness. And a lot of times it's with ourselves for the mistakes we've made, and we need to be as compassionate with ourselves as we are with everyone else, as we are with animals. You know, we don't expect that much from our pets. Well, some people do, but we just love them, and they love us unconditionally. And that's how we're supposed to live. So it's important to keep working on that. And being angry with someone is like drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die, because you're carrying that around with you. And so we're going to go into transforming your life. And we're going to pull up the transforming your life handout. How you treat yourself is how others will treat you. And so if you have a low opinion of yourself, everyone showing up in your life is going to treat you the same. No one will treat you any differently than you treat yourself. And as you change your opinion and your love for yourself and you respect yourself, then others will automatically do that. It's like your hand in the bowl of water. It's that simple. And those that don't love you and cherish you, they will move away. Like the girl I was talking about with this woman who stayed for a month, overstayed her welcome. She won't ever be invited back. Not until something changes in her, you know. But the lady who let her stay had to change that and recognize that she had brought that to herself. Like energy attracts like energy. That's important that you remember that. And if you want to be a nurse, you wouldn't hang out every evening with a bunch of bricklayers listening to how to lay bricks. You need to surround yourself with people who are living the life you want to live. If you want to meet your divine mate, don't go out with a bunch of angry divorced women or men, because the energy is going to infringe on yours and you will create more of the same pattern. I remember Sai Baba would ask people at his ashram, who do you sit with? Who do you sit with? You need to sit with yourself first. And you need to sit with people who are loving and compassionate and supportive of you. And as you decide on the life you want to live, it's important not to share your dreams and your vision for your new life with people who have a negative opinion of you, or who are jealous, or who don't have your highest interest at heart, because their thought forms will work against it. And I've seen it in so many cases with so many clients, especially in Hollywood, where somebody would get offered a part or something in a big production, and they'd tell all their friends, and then boom, it would go. It actually happened with my ex-husband. We were going to go to, he worked for the government. We were going to Panama, and we were all signed up. We were going. I went back to England to see my parents. We were leaving the following week. And he told one of his friends who was really jealous. And the whole thing collapsed. We never went to Panama. And I'm actually glad we didn't in the end. But other people's thought forms work against you. And just remember that. Keep it like you keep a baby, and protect it like a baby, because your new vision is like a baby and it needs to be nurtured, and you need to do everything you can do to hold it until it has a strong energy where nobody can destroy it before it's ever come to fruition. The more energy and attention you put in to whatever you want, the more you get back. And that's if it's positive or negative. It's like Newton's cradle. It's like those magnets. If you just pull up one magnet and just let it go, you just get that much energy. The more energy you put in, the more you get out. So it's no good just wishing it. You have to take the actions to make what your dreams come true. And sometimes that takes some courage, and it takes some patience. And there is no timeline on this. It's your dream, it's your passion, it's your miracle, it's your joy, and it's your timeline. So you don't need to live by other people's timelines either. If you focus on what you don't want, you create more of that. And the more you concentrate on what is good and what is wonderful in your life, the more you bring that. The universe always says yes. So you have to look at your thoughts, words, and deeds, because that's what creates your reality. Sometimes you need to change your own attitude. You know, thinking you can't achieve something, you're not good at something. And some things, we're not all good at everything, but it's finding the things that bring you joy. That's when you become alive and things start to come so much easier for you. So look at whatever energy blocks you have and work on releasing them, and trust and believe in yourself. And remember, you can always ask for help from the divine realms, but you have to ask for help because they cannot infringe on your free will. And the more gratitude you have for where you're at, the quicker things can move forward, because the energy of gratitude is a high vibration and it brings things much quicker. It's like the pendulum of a clock. I used to sell grandfather clocks in England, and I was known as the clock lady. And the lower, the slower. The lower the pendulum, the slower the clock. That's how we would change the time on a grandfather clock. The lower your vibration, the longer it takes to manifest something. That's why people don't recognize, for the most part, that they are the creator of everything that happens in their life. It seems like it just happens to them. They're victims in life, and it's not true. They don't recognize that they're bringing all of those experiences to them because the energy is so low. And as you start doing this work and raising your vibration, manifestations happen much quicker. And then you see the distance between thought and manifestation becoming much quicker. The other day in a class, I was talking about wanting to start this one group for something around my area community group. And I said, but I really don't have the time to start it from scratch, but I really would love to do that. But I've got too many other things I'm working on. And at the end of the class, a lady knocked on my door and she had one of these groups. And I said to her, oh my God, you're an answer to a prayer. I was just talking about this morning, but I could recognize it. And so I joined this community group. I went for a potluck last Thursday night and met some really, really amazing people. And it's just what I asked for. So I can recognize that because I've been doing this work. So you will find that the more that you work on yourself, you will see the distance between thought and manifestation getting less and less. And the vibration of the earth has shifted so much over the last, so many years. We're in such a different frequency now. And the earth is transitioning into fifth dimension, and we're all shifting into fifth dimension, which is where we go with our feelings and our knowingness and our connection to the divine more. God doesn't want us to suffer. The divine doesn't want us to suffer. And so we are getting so much help from all these different dimensions to help us to move through things much quicker than we used to. When I first started doing this work, you had to go to a metaphysical bookstore to even find a book. And then it was pages and pages long. And there were no classes to do this kind of work when I was when I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s. And now there's so much help available. And that's why I've created these programs, because it doesn't have to be difficult. We don't have to spend years and years and years in therapy working on our brain. We can work on our heart and our soul and accomplish everything we ever dreamed of. It just means taking a step forward and actually making a decision. The world around you is created by the energy you send out. And it's important that you are in balance. And that means the masculine and feminine, we both have masculine and feminine, whether we're female or male. The creation comes from the female part, the beingness. You are a human being, not a human doing. And most of us try to move forward by doingness, and it takes longer, it's more exhausting. But when you create from the human beingness, then it's manifest. The universe brings it to you. Then you have the doingness. I remember I wanted to, I wrote my vision, and I was working in Santa Monica, and I thought, well, a lot of celebrities have a lot of issues. They're no different than anybody else. I worked with regular people, corporate people, wealthy people, people who didn't have much money. They all had the same things. And so I wrote my vision, and I said, I wrote it on December the 26th, and I moved and completely gave up the house cleaning because it was too far away. And I moved into an apartment, and I moved in on January the 15th. And I set my apartment up, and I was sitting there after everything was put away and all my pictures were hung. And then I absolutely freaked out. On my vision statement in December, I had put, I now work with celebrities and corporate clients alike. So I wrote that December the 26th. We're now a week after January the 15th. And now I'm really scared. And I'm sitting in my apartment, everything's put away, it looks beautiful. And then I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to make it? I don't know what to do. And I said a prayer, and I said, God, I need a miracle, and I need it now. And I remember I was smoking a cigarette, and I was drinking a beer. That was all I had to drink. That I don't even like beer, but I bought it for the guys who had moved me. So I was drinking a beer and smoking a cigarette. And I thought, oh, I really should call and see if I've got any appointments booked. This was before we had, I think I had a cell phone, but my work number was at my office. I called my office, and there was a message on my answer machine. And this girl said, hi, my name is Jamie, and I do the gift bags for the Grammys and the Academy Awards. Would you like to give me a call? Well, I couldn't talk to her. It took me an hour to gather myself and to become composed to be able to call her. And so I called her. It was about, by this time, it was about 8:30 at night. And I called her and I said, hi, Jamie, this is Jane. You left me a message. And she said, oh, yeah. She said, hi, my friend met you at the Sony something or other I'd done at Sony. And she, I've had your card for 2 years. And I wondered if you would like to participate in the Academy Awards basket. And I said, oh, I'd love to. I will give you a call next week and maybe we can get together. Now my dream is manifest, okay? Now the doingness comes in, and she said to me, oh no, if you want to participate, you be at my office in Hollywood Hills at 8:00 in the morning, and then we can discuss what you do. You can show me how you work, and then we'll take it from there. So I said, absolutely, give me your address. I got there at 8 o'clock. I worked with her. She said, I would love you to participate. And that's when all the doingness came. I had to change all of my what do you call it? Packaging. Everything had to be upgraded. And I had a graphic artist who lived downtown LA. She lived on Spring Street, and I would drive down there. She would work all night. I would drive down there at 2 o'clock in the morning and pick up the work and get everything ready to participate in the Academy Award basket. But it was manifest, and it was a miracle, and it changed the whole process of my work and the way that I did things. But I asked for help, and you don't have to be in church praying and, oh God, if you give me this, please, I'll be this and I'll do that. No, you just ask for help. The universe always says yes. And then once it's created, then the doingness comes. Then I had to really step up my game and change everything. And it worked. So you have to create from beingness, the female energy, and then the doingness, the masculine energy comes in. But you cannot create from doingness. And don't react or ask for something from a place of not having. Because like I said, the universe always says yes. So if you say to, no, I don't know, if you say, oh, I'm so broken, I'm so broke, I need money, the universe says yes. You have to change. You have to change the way that you think and feel and do, and you have to love where you're at. That's one of the biggest keys in transforming your life. And to be balanced and to be secure. And having a clear intention and not having lots and lots of different things floating around. You have to be really, really centered and not be distracted. And sometimes you only need one step. Sometimes the universe will just give you one step. And when you take that step, then the next step follows, and then the next step follows. And then everything starts to manifest. But you need to also listen to your intuition, and don't talk about it with anybody who is not supportive of you. You create it and you hold it, and you hold it safe. You don't need to discuss it with everybody else. And when you do things that bring you aliveness, you get more and more and more. And just remember, the universe always says yes. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And there's some more handouts to do between now and module 3. Have a beautiful rest of your day.